Members, colleagues, friends. Last Saturday, the Irish Labour History Society remembered a former Labour leader, Frank Cluskey, 25 years after his death. I thought of Frank last week when the Tuam babies case hit the headlines. And while there's still a lot we don't know about the case, we do know it's another disturbing, horrible legacy from the institutions in which Ireland once hid its unwanted women and children. It's not widely remembered now, but in government, Frank and the Labour Party introduced a series of allowances to help women, particularly women parenting on their own. As a result, women who are having a baby on their own now had a right to look for an income from the state. So almost overnight, the number of children placed for adoption or in institutions fell dramatically. And within a short time, most of the institutions themselves had become a thing of the past. I went into politics because of what the Labour Party stood for then, and it stands for it now. And when we think of what Labour has achieved, we are reminded that progress does not come easy. It has to be fought for, and Labour has always been willing to fight that battle. Many excellent Labour candidates failed to get elected last month, despite admirable track records of working for their communities, and many of them who are my friends are here tonight. They lost because voters were unhappy with our performance in government. Up to now, we have concentrated on economic recovery, but this has meant asking an awful lot from people, and we undoubtedly made mistakes along the way. Now a recovery is underway, but it needs to be felt in people's pockets by restoring their living standards and making good the losses they have suffered. In January of 1919, the First Dáil adopted a democratic programme suffused with Labour values, as party leader Tom Johnson was instrumental in drafting it. The programme stated, "In return for willing service, we, in the name of the Republic, declare the right of every citizen to an adequate share of the produce of the nation's labour." The language sounds dated, but the ideal is not. As we build the economic recovery, we must ensure a social recovery too, so that the benefits are felt by every person, every family, and every community. This means getting more people back to work and helping small businesses to prosper, building social and affordable homes and new schools, investing in health, and reducing inequality. I believe that passion is a distinguishing mark of a leader, and I am passionate about tackling persistent inequality. Throughout Europe and the US, wealth has become more concentrated than ever, and this has been hugely negative for all societies, including our own. Jobs and inequality are closely linked issues. Income inequality has prolonged the slump, and it is now a serious brake on recovery. The recent European elections and the swing to extreme parties were a response to the policies implemented by the EU institutions after the crash. The European voters were taking their anger out on governments and an EU that had not sufficiently protected them from economic and social insecurity. That is a great challenge for the EU, and why I believe it will now recognise that a grand plan for jobs is an absolute priority. I regard last week's action by the European Central Bank President, Mario Draghi, to release credit for small businesses all across the EU, including Ireland, to be a first instalment of this. Separately, we now face the greatest of the post-bailout challenges, the next phase of negotiation on the legacy debt. We have already achieved lower interest rates and extensions on our loans, but we have unfinished business with the EU in that respect. I intend, if you give me your support to become leader, to press our case through negotiation rather than careless confrontation, using patience and the power of sound argument and making common cause with our European social democratic allies rather than resorting to the bogus threats advocated by our opponents. Here at home, we're already focusing relentlessly on getting people back to work, and the latest figures show 33,000 fewer people on the live register now than this time last year. But we do need to accelerate that progress because it is central to building the social recovery and to tackling inequality. Every morning, I'm conscious that there are 260,000 people in this country who wake up with no job to go to. I believe in a society that provides opportunities for all and work for every person who wants to work. That's why, to me, the Labour Party is the party of work. It's why I've sought to make sure that the social welfare system, it's no longer a safety net, but a springboard back to work, because Labour, our party, is the party of work. Getting people back to work is how we grow tax revenue without increasing tax rates, reduce welfare spending without cutting supports, and create room for new investments in essential public services. But work in itself is not enough unless it's accompanied by a living wage, the guarantee of a decent and secure income to ensure a person and their family can afford to live a decent life. Ensuring a just taxation system is also essential to raising living standards. When I was in opposition, I highlighted the scandal of tax shelters that allowed millionaires avoid tax and fueled the calamitous building boom. I want to phase out any remaining tax shelters that favour the very wealthy so that we can concentrate tax relief on where it's needed most for low and middle income families. All of this must be accompanied by a strong safety net to protect people when they need it. As Social Protection Minister, I fought to protect that safety welfare net because of its importance in safeguarding against poverty and maintaining social cohesion. And I will continue to protect it against the never-ending assault from right-wing critics. We have to tackle the issue of housing supply by rapidly increasing the construction of social and affordable houses while working at the same time to safeguard tenants' rights. I'm also acutely conscious of the 80,000 or so construction workers who are still without a job. Getting necessary and sustainable housing programmes off the ground will help those workers hugely. That's how we build a social as well as an economic recovery. Building that recovery will help Labour win back trust and support. But recovery for the party will be a collective endeavour. It won't be done without all of the people in this room. I take great encouragement from the fact that just a couple of weeks after such a traumatic election, so many of you are here tonight to chart the way forward. I know some of you are worried about whether Labour should continue in government, but when you look at Labour's long history of fighting for progress, the best way of achieving the progress is by being in government. We are now at the point where we can embark on the challenging task of building the social recovery and building Labour's recovery in the process. These are my core beliefs, and I think they're also the values of many people in this country. If you share them and have confidence in my capacity to progress them, I ask you to vote for me and to work together to build a brighter future for the Labour Party and for our country.
Thank you very much, Joan. Thank you. Can I ask Alex White now to take to the podium?